What's up, guys? Carolina Jackpot coming at you on Thursday evening. It is September the 19th, 2019. We're talking college football. We're talking week number 4. I'm going to go through this bevy of games as quick as I can, talk about each one, and picks against the spread. Sorry I couldn't get these out earlier. Last week I got them out on Wednesday, and that got a good response. Tonight, I'm actually having to get it out on Thursday night. Been working a lot this week. I was going to do them last night, but I honestly was just so tired that my mind just was not into it. So I'm not going to do Thursday night's game, obviously, as that's going on right now. Houston, 28-14 over Tulane at halftime in New Orleans. And Carolina Jackpot probably would have gotten that pick right as far as it goes right now. It's still at halftime. I was going to pick Houston and the points there. I do think they just have a more talented team than Tulane. But we will see how that one ends up. We're going to jump right into it. We got a game tomorrow night, Friday night, a big one in Los Angeles. Utah is 2.5-point favorites on the road at USC in the Coliseum. Actually, it's moved to 3.5 now. I'm taking the opening lines from CBS that I wrote down on Tuesday. Here, some of them have moved just a little bit, but not too awful much. So really 3.5-point favorites right now. Let me go on ahead and just make this one easy. Utah's going to cover the spread here. Utah, number 8 overall defense in the country. The rushing game is just out of the world. Zach Moss doing a great job this year so far. They're undefeated. I expect them fully to win the Pac-12 championship this year. USC, just another hurdle to overcome. It's on a Friday night. I don't expect a huge crowd to be there. How many other things are there to do in Los Angeles on a Friday night other than watch a football game? I just don't expect to be a huge football atmosphere for the home team. I think Utah goes in there, takes care of business against USC as a backup quarterback. They've already had a blow this year. Coming off a loss to BYU on the road. I think they might be reeling just a little bit. Both of them kind of off a short week. Give me Utah to cover the spread here against USC. I would consider that to be a major upset if Utah did not win this ball game. Jumping into Saturday's games. Tennessee on the road at Florida. Tennessee's catching 14 on the highway against the Florida Gators. Florida is ranked number 9 right now, and if you talk to just about any college football pundit, anybody that's a podcast or anything, Florida's extremely overrated, and they are. Number 9 team, no. I mean, are they maybe a top 15 to 20 team? Yeah, I think they probably are. This will be Kyle Trask's first start as quarterback. Of course, Felipe Franks went down towards the end of the third quarter last week against Kentucky with just a terrible leg. He broke his ankle, I believe. He's going to be out for the year. So it's Trask's team from here on out. It's up for him to do some good things in this one. Tennessee has just been, maligned all year long. Of course, that season opening, just shocking loss at home to Georgia Southern, where, it wasn't like a last-second loss. They just clearly got outplayed. Just didn't do well in that game. Next week, inexplicable loss to BYU in overtime in a game that they had all but won. And then last week, they actually took on Chattanooga, the in-state team, and they thrashed them pretty good. Tennessee, the pass defense, for as much as they've been maligned, they are not that bad. Their running back, Ty Chandler, he can get it going. And the quarterback, Jarrett Garantano, has not played up to what we thought that he was going to be this year. The kid had like a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio last year. He hasn't shown that type of brilliance this year, but their pass defense is really good. I think Tennessee is kind of in desperation mode. Last year, you kind of saw them come out of the woodwork and win a couple of SEC games that nobody really thought they had a chance to win. A home game over Kentucky, a road game at Auburn. I don't think they're going to win this game. I think Kyle Trask and them will be just a little bit too much for them. I think that Russian attack probably be a little bit too much, and I just think they're just kind of going to get out-athleted by Florida, and the fact they're playing on the road does not work in their favor either. But I like Tennessee here to cover the spread. I think they'll keep this one a little close, too close for comfort for Florida. Maybe an 10-point win for the Gators here, and they'll move to 4-0 on the season. But watch out for an upset alert here, because I say Tennessee is in desperation mode, and Florida, quite frankly, you're just not that good. You're not that good. You couldn't blow out a terrible Miami team. You barely beat Kentucky that well. A feather in your cap. You did come from 11 points down in the fourth quarter to win that game, but I'm taking Tennessee to cover here, but I would take Florida straight up. LSU on the road at Vandy. I mean, all the signs in this one point to a blowout. Vanderbilt is catching 23.5 at home against LSU. I think it's moved closer to 25 by now. The LSU defense is not what we thought it was going to be. They're only ranked like 30th in total defense in the country. So I think we thought they were going to be like in the top 5. Vandy, Keyshawn Vaughn has yet to get that running game going. Riley Neal not proved. We thought he might struggle as quarterback of an SEC team facing, a little bit tougher level competition. They've only played 2 games. Had an off week last week after a pretty bad loss to Purdue on the road in week 2. And I'll look for LSU to cover the spread here and win this one easily. I remember Vanderbilt getting beat by like 50 points. Versus Alabama a couple of years ago when they screamed, "We want Bama," after they beat Kansas State. You remember that? Well, Vandy didn't beat Kansas State last week. They ain't screaming, "We want LSU," but I still think they could lose this game really badly, and I think they will. Give me the Bayou Bengals in this one all day long. Boston College on the road at Rutgers. Rutgers is catching 7.5 at home against Boston College. Make no mistake about this, Rutgers is still a bad football team. Their quarterbacks have combined for like 3 interceptions already this year, and they had the week off last week. 30-0 loss on the road in their first conference game against Iowa. Boston College was 2-1 right now. Of course, last week just an inexplicable, just terrible loss at home to Kansas, 48-34 in Kansas, their first road win over a Power 5 foe since 2008. Don't make too much of that. That was just Kansas's night. I mean, I think that was just their night. I think Boston College is going to right the ship here. Steve Adazio is a good coach. They normally have pretty good, sound, solid, disciplined teams. I'm sure that they had a really tough week of practice. They're coming off of an extra day's rest after that loss, going on the road to Rutgers. Rutgers didn't play last week. I don't think it's really going to matter. Boston College is essentially Iowa. They're a lot the same. Rutgers lost to Iowa 30-0. I don't see them losing to Boston College 30-0, but I could see 30-14. I could see them giving up some touchdowns to A.J. Dillon. I think Boston College gets back to their bread and butter a little bit here, makes a statement, and takes care of business in this one. Give me the Eagles to get the comeback here and cover the spread against Rutgers. Win fairly easily. South Carolina at Mizzou. We already talked about this one. My feelings on this one. Missouri overall has the number 4 defense in the country. So that's a concern. Gamecocks overall, we don't have the number 4 defense in the country. Kelly Bryant, as much as everybody talked in the offseason about how much of a dual threat quarterback he was and how is it going to add another element to Missouri's game, he really hasn't shown that dual threat ability that much at Missouri. or, at least he hasn't been asked to. Maybe they just want to keep him upright, don't want to get him injured. I'm really not sure exactly how that works. He's got a couple of good receivers to throw to. Jalen Knox is an NFL receiver, and Albert, I cannot pronounce his last name. It's something like Okunbaka, the tight end. He's a receiving tight end. He will go out on passing routes and catch the ball for him. Larry Roundtree, the third, continues to do a good job for him at the running back position. Gamecocks are catching 9.5 on the road right now. The line looks a little inflated to me. I think that some of that is just because of South Carolina, so the carryover effect from losing to Bama last week. They say there's a Clemson effect and an Alabama effect and a Georgia effect, and when you play an elite team, you get beat up a little bit. They, kind of take your moxie away from you, kind of, pissing your cornflakes a little bit because they beat you down so bad. Newsflash, so South Carolina didn't get beat down by Alabama that bad. They didn't get beat down by Alabama that bad. Were we going to win that game? No, but we got momentum killed a couple of times by some really crappy calls against us. Now, yes, I know Alabama's tight end scored a touchdown, tight roping down the sideline, and we didn't get it called for it. I know that, okay? That wasn't a momentum changer. The South Carolina touchdown taken away was momentum changing. And I think that there really is not going to be that layover effect from Bama here because we didn't get beat up. And knock on wood, I knocked on wood too hard there. I turned my camera inside out. There weren't any injuries that I know of, not anything of note. And I expect the Gamecocks to go out here and play well. This is not the toughest environment to play in. We're not playing Alabama's defense anymore. I think South Carolina can put some points up. Young freshman Ryan Helinski having to go on the road for the first time in the SEC. That's one negative that we can take to this game that could be a sticky point, but we're going into an environment that it's not that difficult to play in. He's not going on the road to a Georgia. He's not going on the road to Auburn. He's not going on the road. This is not even going on the road to Tennessee. I mean, this is kind of a dead environment. So I'm taking the Gamecocks here to cover the spread in this game. I don't know that we win this one. I don't know that we're going to pull the upset here. If somebody told me it's going to be a 3-point game, one way or the other, I would think that it would be in favor of Missouri. Just because, the South Carolina secondary has not looked good to me. I don't like the way they're playing right now. I don't like the fact that they can't form tackle after years and years of being in the same coaching system. That they're out of position. That I don't like. I do like the defensive line. I want to see him get some pressure on Kelly Bryant. I would like to see him on his backside more than once in this game, and I think I will. But ultimately, if I have to set my druthers, I think that the Gamecocks probably lose a close game, probably one of those heartbreakers. But I think we cover the spread here. UConn on the road at Indiana. UConn is catching 27.5 in Bloomington. I'm not going to lay points with Indiana for any reason. They got beat 41 points last week by Ohio State, 51-10 at home. They only won by 10 points on a neutral side against Ball State in week 1. There is nothing to suggest to me that they're a good football team. UConn at 1-1 so far this year, right? Their defense has not looked that bad. They have not looked that bad. They covered the spread at home against Illinois, and made a ball game of that one. They didn't win, but I had thought that Illinois was going to run away with that one, and they showed a little bit of fight there. They won in week 1 against FCS School Wagner. I think 27.5 points is too much. I think Indiana will probably win this game and probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 points. But give me UConn to cover the spread there against the Hoosiers. Western Michigan on the road at Syracuse. Syracuse is laying 5 points at home against Western Michigan. Look, Syracuse had some opportunities last week against Clemson to score. They had a couple of really good opportunities. They had two times they had the ball, first and goal inside the 5-yard line, and they came away with, I think, 3 points. So this week, they are not facing Clemson's defense. They're facing Western Michigan's defense, which with a couple of blowout wins so far this year, they put up a lot of points last week on Georgia State, a team that beat Tennessee. But last year, let's go back to what happened there. I think it was a 56-42 Syracuse victory at Western Michigan. This is a home game. They're looking to rebound. They've taken 2 losses in a row. And I think they make a statement here and play a decent game. I think they play a solid game defensively against a team that they can play a solid game against and hold them to a decent amount of points. And I think that this is the type of team that Tommy DeVito can actually have success against throwing the ball. Mo Neal has success running the ball for them. And I'm taking Syracuse here. I think they'll cover that 5-point spread fairly easily and win the game against Western Michigan, 14-21 points. Give me the orange in this one. Southern Miss at Alabama. Alabama laying 38.5 at home against the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. I think this line is just too large. Southern Miss is not a terrible football team. I mean, they are Conference USA. Went to Mississippi State, played a decent game. And Alabama, when we get this high of a point spread, you got to kind of think, when do they, call the dogs off? When do they put the backups in? Last week they put the backups in against South Carolina when they were up by, 24 points. Matt Jones came in at quarterback. They have not been able to run the ball as effectively this year as they have in the past. I don't know that will be as much of an issue against Southern Miss. But look out for Southern Miss and quarterback. I mean, they can put some drives together and put some points on the board. In the end, I think Alabama will win this game with relative ease. 38.5 points. That is so close. I mean, it's just so close to that number where I would come in at. Looking ahead to next week, and I don't know exactly who Alabama has next week. It may be Texas A&M. I'm not exactly sure. This is a tough one. So I think Southern Miss is going to go in there and play. They are going to play the best game they can possibly play against Alabama. I think they probably saw last week South Carolina just coming in there with a little bit of toughness, punching them in the mouth, and they can stay with them for a while. I'm going to take Southern Miss to cover the spread here. I don't think they'll win or come anywhere close to it, but look for them to keep it around a 35-point margin. That's what I'm thinking there. Michigan State at Northwestern. Northwestern is a 9-point underdog at home. This is one of those lines that I got to look at, and I'm kind of like, what the hell is going on here? I don't really understand it. Why is Michigan State favored by 9? I'm not even sure that they win this game. And they only put up 7 points last week against Arizona State. That offense, scored 50 in the 50s against, I think it was Western Michigan the week before, and scored some points against Tulsa in week 1. Week 3 just looked absolutely anemic against Arizona State, not exactly an offensive juggernaut or a defensive juggernaut. And then you lose the game in just like the worst way possible. 12 men on the field for a field goal attempt that was good. Points get taken off. Put 11 men on the field. You can't make it. Not very characteristic of a Mark D'Antonio team. Make those kind of mistakes very often. I'm taking Northwestern here to cover the spread in this one. Northwestern can run the ball. Their quarterback play has been anemic so far this year. But, if there's a time that they can certainly bounce back, it's right here. And if we've learned anything over the years, you've got to expect the unexpected from Northwestern. I mean, you just do not know what's going to happen with this team, but I think they're going to cover the spread here against the Spartans, and I would not be surprised to see them win this game. Cal on the road at Ole Miss. Ole Miss, 2-point favorites at home. Cal's actually ranked number 24 in the country. They're 3-0. They beat Washington, of course, week 2. And everybody talks about, that game didn't start till really late, and there was some lightning there and in Husky Stadium, and it was just kind of a strange atmosphere, and and it got started late, and so that's kind of why maybe I think it was kind of a fluke win by Cal there. Well, I cannot stand that excuse. I cannot stand that excuse for teams losing ball games. There's always going to be weather problems, especially towards the beginning of the year. There's going to be thunderstorms. There's going to be hurricane stuff. There's going to be rain. There's going to be lightning. There's going to be whatever. Guess what? It affects both teams. It affects both teams. So that is not an excuse for Washington to lay a turd at home to a Cal team that they were favored against. Can you maybe just think that Cal might just be pretty good? Their quarterback, Chase Garbers, has looked good this year. That defense has been decent. I think they're going to be able to throw and actually move the ball. Here against Ole Miss, a team that did drop their opener to Memphis and has won their past 2, a game against Arkansas a couple weeks ago, which I had actually picked Arkansas to win that game, and it disappointed me. And then last week, they beat Southwestern Louisiana, or Southeastern Louisiana, an FCS team, but still gave up like 20 points to them. Their pass defense really concerns me. Their defense overall concerns me. I don't think they have the skill position talent that they've had in the past with Jordan Tamu and a bevy of receivers. They have Matt Corral, like one receiver and one decent running back. Coming off of the win last week, I think Cal's going to take the win here. I look for them to go to 4-0, and I think they're going to take care of business against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is not a good football team. This is just more of that. I hate to say it because my team plays in the SEC. They don't really benefit from it a whole lot, but I think this is just some of that SEC bias stuff. There's no reason why Cal should not be favored in this ball game. They're clearly the better team, and I believe they'll prove it on Saturday. Michigan going on the road to Camp Randall. Both teams are 2-0. Both teams had bye weeks last week. Michigan with a couple of wins, beat Middle Tennessee State in week 1. Week number 2, barely beat Army in overtime, 24-21. So they've definitely been exposed to the running game, and they'll be exposed to it some more here in Camp Randall against Wisconsin. Wisconsin laying 3.5 at home against Michigan. Tough matchup. Wisconsin's not allowed a point this year. They're number 1 in all defensive categories in the country. Overall defense, pass defense, and run defense. No points allowed in their games against Central Michigan and South Florida. Obviously, quite a step up in competition here against Shea Patterson. And with Michigan, they're going to face a passing attack. Finally, that haven't faced yet. I think that these teams are pretty much evenly matched. And when they're pretty much evenly matched, 3.5 points at home at Camp Randall. I think Camp Randall's probably worth about 4 to 5 points with the home field advantage there. This is a big game for Wisconsin. Give me the Badgers here to cover the spread and win this game. It may only be like a 4-point victory. I think will be relatively middle of the field scoring. Middle of the field. It's not going to be a high-scoring ball game. I mean, I could see a 28-24 game here, maybe a 35-31 game. But give me Wisconsin to cover against Michigan. Louisville on the road at Florida State. Louisville is 2-1 right now currently. Florida State's 1-2. The Florida State we saw last week, quite honestly, the team should have won that ball game. Frankly, they should have won in week 1 against Boise State. They have had real problems in the second half finishing games, putting 4 quarters together. Can they finally do it this week? I kind of think this is kind of a breakout type game for Kendall Briles, Cam Akers, and that Florida State offense. They looked pretty good last week against Virginia. And for all intents and purposes, that wide receiver, Tomion Terry, I think is his name, he's an NFL talent. And he took Bryce Hall from Virginia to school last week. And Bryce Hall is regarded by a lot of people as the number one cornerback in the country. And Terry made him look silly quite a few times in that ball game. Just clearly outplayed him. Louisville at 2-1. Of course, the first game against Notre Dame looked really good in the first half. I was like, I made a video about that one. Where has this team been? Where have they been? The coaching, I mean, it's more solid this year, a lot more solid. Followed up second week, they blew out Eastern Kentucky last week with a blowout win on the road, or not actually on the road. It was a neutral site game against Western Kentucky, which I don't understand why a Louisville and Western Kentucky, who are both located in the state of Kentucky, have to go to Tennessee to play a football game in the Tennessee Titans Stadium. Makes no sense. They could have held that game at Western Kentucky Stadium and raised a ton of money there, sold the game out 2 times over if they'd wanted to, but I don't know. I don't know why things are why they are. However, I think that Florida State, I like them in this ball game. I think they're going to cover the spread. I think Louisville is a team that they can put some points up on. I think they're going to be able to run the ball with Cam Akers. I mean, the guy is, I think, number 4 in the country in rushing right now, which I'm glad to see. I mean, he's a good talent. He's just had some really poor coaching, poor offensive line play the past couple of years, and just has not been able to maximize his potential. I think the Florida State Seminoles moved to 2-2 on the year. I think they get this win at home against Louisville, and I think they'll cover the spread. Although I expect a really close game. If they're covering it, this could be a 1-touchdown affair. They could cover the spread by half a point. Taking nothing away from Louisville, as Scott Satterfield do an excellent job there. If this game were being played in Louisville, I would probably be taking them. And there will be a little bit of a home field advantage here at Florida State. I expect the fans to show up for this one. It's that first home conference game for Florida State. They'll show up for the game. Florida State's going to win this one and cover the spread. Take the Noles on the points there in that game. App State on the road at UNC. UNC laying 2.5 points at home. Finally took a loss last week. Well, we say finally took a loss. That's because they were 2-0. Well, guess what? Last year they only won 2 games the whole year. Sam Howell, quarterback, true freshman, led them to 2 come from behind fourth quarter victories against South Carolina in week 1 and against Miami in week 2. Tried to pull the same magic off against Wake Forest in week 3 and just came up a little bit short. I like this UNC team under Mac Brown. They're poised to possibly make a run for maybe like a second place finish in the ACC Coastal before all this is done. I think Virginia is clearly the better team there. And they showed that by being able to come from behind at home against Florida State last weekend. But don't sleep on UNC. 2.5 points, not a lot here. They're playing at home. Back in the summer, I clearly thought App State would win this game. But looking at App State, they have given up some yardage through the air. Especially, they were torched by UNC Charlotte. And their quarterback, Chris Reynolds, gave up 42 points, I believe, at home. They won the game like 59-42. They gave up a lot of yardage through the air. And that's not been uncharacteristic of App State in the past. I mean, they return almost everybody except for one cornerback. They return almost everybody in that secondary. And, Drinkowitz hired Ted Roof as his defensive coordinator. And this guy has just been an abomination everywhere he's been. At Georgia Tech, Was at Duke for a while as head coach. I mean, I think the man won like 3 games in 4 years. So I mean, he's just not what you need. And to that effect, I think the renaissance will continue here for the UNC football program. And I think App State will come up just a little bit short against a Power 5 team. Once again, give me UNC and the points here. You're going to need every one of those 2.5. I think this will be a very close one, but give me the Heels at home. UCF going on the road to play Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh catching 11 at home against UCF. You know, Pittsburgh last week covering the spread, lost 17-10 to Penn State on the road. Kept that a lot closer than what many would think. They squandered some opportunities to score points and possibly even win the game. UCF, it doesn't matter who has been playing quarterback for them there, whether it's Gabriel, whether it's Brandon Wimbush. I mean, they've looked great. Just picked up where they left off last year. I mean, they just absolutely obliterated Stanford last week at home. I was at 45-27. I mean, do you think Stanford's a better team than Pitt? I don't know. I would rate them about the same. This is a road game. I don't think Pittsburgh has a real solid home field advantage one way or the other. Give me UCF in this game to cover the spread. I think the score here is a little bit lower. But Pittsburgh, I think, with a little bit more defensive prowess than some of the teams they've played before. I still think UCF gets the win. I like them here in this situation. Auburn's on the road at Texas A&M. Texas A&M laying 3.5 at home in Kyle Field against Auburn, who is 3-0. Texas A&M's 2-1 with wins over Texas State and Lamar in blowout fashion. They lost at Clemson 24-10. Let's just be real. Should have been 24-3. Did not play very well at all in that game. I was not impressed with Kellen Mond and his ability to throw under pressure. You know, he didn't really escape the pocket. He didn't, his playing was very vanilla. Didn't try to scramble around. He's a running quarterback. He did no such. Auburn has looked really good this year running the ball with Jartavius Booby Whitlow. Their quarterback, Bo Nix, true freshman, has done a good job for them. They don't have a downfield passing game whatsoever. I think that could hurt them here in this situation because I think Texas A&M is a little bit vulnerable against the pass, as we did see against Clemson. Trevor Lawrence with a couple of nice completions there. That's all he really needed, as Texas A&M's offense was so inept there that he didn't have to do a lot. This is a tough call. This is a tough one to call. I think that running game with Auburn at 3-0, they blew out their last 2 opponents with Tulane, a solid team. That's not a Power 5 team, but a solid team from a group of 5 at home. Just holding them to 6 points at home. Blew out Kent State last week. Auburn looks like a team that has it clicking this year on offense, even despite the fact that the downfield passing game is not there right now. I think it will develop. That's one of the kind of the last things developed with the true freshman playing quarterback for you. They had that big win over Auburn with Oregon to start the season. Kind of boosted their confidence a little bit. I think they're going to go 4-0 and give me the win here for Auburn to cover the spread against Texas A&M at Kyle Field. Yes, I know the Kyle Field effect, 100 and whatever thousand, but I mean Auburn's played in that environment many times before. So nothing new for them. So I'm going to give them the win here. And I just don't think Texas A&M is very good. I just don't think they're very good offensively. I mean, I think they have no problems putting up points against teams that are just vastly inferior to them. But when they were put to the test in that game against Clemson on the big stage, they couldn't do it. I mean, they just absolutely blew it there. It's not that Clemson's defense played that great in that game. It's just that their offense was that inept. And that's not me being a Gamecock homer and throwing shade on Clemson there. Texas A&M just did not play a good game at all. Their game plan wasn't good. They didn't execute what game plan they did have. And I'm going to go with Auburn here in this game to cover the spread and win that game. Miami of Ohio, the Red Hawks, formerly the Redskins. We can't call them that anymore. On the road against Ohio State. Ohio State laying 39 at home. That's a lot of points. But Ohio State's won their games by a lot of points this year. 42-0 win over Cincinnati, a very, very formidable non-Power 5 opponent. The 51-10 win on the road at Indiana last week. One would think they might be a little bit tired and worn out, especially that big game next week against Nebraska on the road. I just don't think that Miami of Ohio has enough going for them offensively to be able to keep Ohio State and Justin Fields off the field. Therefore, I think Ohio State and Justin Fields are going to cover the spread just because of the fact they're going to be on the field all the time against this inept Miami of Ohio broken down offense that just can't move the ball. Washington on the road at BYU. That BYU run defense is a little suspect. Everybody talks about Jacob Eason playing for Miami or Washington at quarterback. And he's had kind of a decent year, kind of subpar. That loss to Cal was a little bit disappointing for him at home there. But Washington, they will run the ball here on the road. I expect him to get the win in this game. But I think BYU is going to cover the spread. This is one I think to be really, really close and probably one of the better games of the weekend that bears watching. If you like watching college football, watch Washington at BYU. Let me take the Cougars here to cover the spread, but I think that Washington will end up getting like a 27-24, a 28-24 win, something like that on the road. But should be a really good game. Kentucky, the Wildcats, my favorite team in the world, on the road at Mississippi State. Mississippi State laying 6.5 at home against the Wildcats. They lost against this team last year for the first time in a while. If you remember, 2 years ago, Kentucky went to Mississippi State undefeated, ended up losing like 45-7. Mississippi State this year, they just don't look good to me this year. Do not look good. A couple of so-so wins against inferior competition, Louisiana Lafayette and Southern Miss in weeks 1 and 2, and then last week kind of laid a turd at home, losing to Chris Kleinman's Kansas State squad 31-24. Running the ball, I think they're okay with Kyle and Hill back there. The kid at quarterback, I think, will do a decent job for them here. Kentucky going to throw the ball a little bit more now with Sawyer Brown at quarterback than what they were with Terry Wilson. Terry Wilson's out with injury. So kind of tough loss last week. They had the game against Florida kind of in the bag, and the bag just kind of burst at the end of the third quarter when Kyle Trask came into the game. It gave us an emotional lift, and they ended up winning that one. Is there a carryover effect here, and especially on the road, and kind of a tough environment at Mississippi State to play in? I mean, I think there could be, but I don't think this Mississippi State team is really just quite good enough to take advantage of that. I'm going to take Kentucky to cover the spread here. I think Mississippi State will probably end up winning this game, but this would be another one that should be very close and probably another good one that's worth watching. Give me Kentucky to cover the spread here. Give me Mississippi State, though, straight up. West Virginia at Kansas. Kansas is a 4.5-point underdog at home against West Virginia. This is another misnomer here. I think too much is being made of Kansas. Nice win against Boston College on the road last Friday night. They're coming off. They'll be off 7 or 8 days rest here. And this one, yes, I get that. It was a good feel-good win. But look at what West Virginia did. 44-27 win over a NC State team that had been putting up a ton of points up until last week. I'm not a big believer in Kansas yet. To beat West Virginia, it's going to take more than that running game. It's going to take. They're going to have to prove that they can throw the ball. And the young kid, last week was 20 of 27 against Boston College, and had some good numbers. Not a lot of long throws though, and just intermediate stuff. That's kind of a throwaway game to me. I think that reality sets back in here. We get back into conference play. I think West Virginia wins this game on the road and by more than 4.5 points. Give me West Virginia to cover the spread against Kansas. Oregon on the road at Stanford. Easy pick here. Give me Oregon all day long at 10.5 points. Stanford's not looked good this year, and the one win they did have was a 17-7 stinker at home against Northwestern. Of course, they lost to USC on the road in week 2. Week 3, they just absolutely got obliterated by UCF, like 45-27 in a game it wasn't even that close. They don't look good. In the verge of starting 0-3, or is it 0-3 or 1-4 for the first time under David Shaw, and who knows when. But then again, you kind of got to look at Oregon. They have been a team in recent history that would just kind of poop the bed against a team that they have no business losing to. Last year they did it against Arizona. Hopefully they don't do it this year against Stanford, because that is a Pac-12 North opponent. But I think that their goal is to win that Pac-12 North. I think it's going to be an Oregon, Washington State, Washington shootout here for supremacy up there. I think the Pac-12 South is pretty clear cut that Utah is going to take that thing, especially if they win this weekend against USC. You can probably pretty much put that one on the shelf. Oregon, Washington State, still pretty much up for grabs there in the North. And even Cal. Cal's playing some good ball right now. So that could be an exciting race to watch. But I think Oregon covers the spread here and wins this game. Stanford just not looking like the same team last year. No Bryce Love, no J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. The quarterback, K.J. Costello, has played well, but he's been kind of dinged up a couple of times. And just hasn't looked like himself lately. So let's take Oregon in this game to cover. Charlotte on the road at Clemson. Interesting one. Part of me wants to take Clemson here because, quite obviously the better team. They're going to flex some muscle. And you have the element of a lot of the Clemson fan base and a lot of the media and pundits looking at Trevor Lawrence is like, hey, man, where are all these completions at? Why have you thrown 5 interceptions this year and only 5 touchdowns? Where's all this high flying? Where are all these frisbee catching dog receivers? Where are we at? The thing is, they're still winning, and they're winning with relative ease. I don't really know where a lot of that complaining is coming from. So I could see Clemson going out here and saying, okay, you want to doubt us? Well, we're going to make believers out of you. I can see it from that effect. But I can also, that's a situational thing. But fundamentally, I can see Charlotte and the quarterback, Chris Reynolds, he's completed like 44 or 67 passes this year. Been a pretty decent quarterback, 7 TDs against 2 interceptions. Put up like 7 touchdowns against Appalachian State. Benny LeMay at running back, averaging well over 100 yards a game. Really good for Charlotte. This is not, the Charlotte team that just entered college football, 10, 12 years ago. This team's kind of seasoned, and they've played some decent games against decent teams. Now, I'm not talking about like last year's 14-3 loss on the road at Tennessee, but this is an opportunity for them. This is an opportunity on a huge stage on the ACC network on the road at nighttime against Clemson. Clemson doesn't play these kind of teams at nighttime very often. All right, so it's a chance for Charlotte to really get some exposure. And I think they're going to go out there and actually score some points. where it be 14 or 21, it's not going to be enough because I could see the Tigers putting up in the high 50s to 60s. But you know what I can also see? I can see Charlotte covering the spread. I can see Clemson winning this game by anywhere from 38 to 40 points to 41 points. But I like Charlotte here to cover the spread in this one. And I'm not sure what the over-under is, figure on it is. I would take the over on it as well. I think some points are going to be scored here. I think Clemson's going to come out and make a statement with Travis Etienne running and with Trevor throwing the ball to a bevy of receivers. A lot of guys going to get in this one. A lot of guys going to see action and be productive in this one. But I think Charlotte might cover that number. OK State at Kansas, Oklahoma State. Chuba Hubbard. This kid's on his way to a 2,000-yard season. He keeps up the pace he's at right now. 500 and something yards so far through only 3 games. So Oklahoma State's running the ball this year instead of just airing it out all the time as they have in the past. Texas, Sam Ehlinger, quietly he's doing what he needs to do. And this is a tough one. This is a tough one to call. Being at Darrell Royal Stadium in Austin, I think that Texas will win this game. I take them to cover the spread here. I can see them winning. This will probably be like a touchdown game. But, it would not surprise me at all to see OK State pull the win out here. They have beaten Texas more often than not in recent memory. So, nothing here is set in stone. Sam Ehlinger, coming off that loss to LSU, we're getting into conference time right now. They want to get back to that Big 12 conference game. They've got a really big hurdle right here at the beginning, and I think they clear the hurdle. I think they pass this first test and beat OK State at home and cover the spread. Nebraska on the road at Illinois. Nebraska is laying 13 points on the road against the Illini. I think this could be a coming out type game for Adrian Martinez. Looked kind of so-so against South Alabama. Didn't look good at all against Colorado in that loss in overtime. But last week against Northern Illinois, this team really started to come together. Northern Illinois, a tough team, a tough test. And they won that game 33-8. And I had said that would be a litmus test for this team because 2 years ago, they lost to Northern Illinois. They turn around and just totally dismantle them this year. Illinois, not a very good team at all. 13 points, not a lot. Adrian Martinez and company, I think the offense is going to start clicking on all cylinders. They got a big, big test coming up next week against Ohio State at home. That could be a huge game for them. Huge program builder if they can pull off the win there. It's going to be tough, though. It's going to be really tough. Ohio State has been playing some great ball this year. And, I kind of thought that maybe they might get that win, and I'm kind of not looking that way right now. But by God, they are going to go all out for it. And I think they're going to send a message here against Illinois. Give me Nebraska to cover the spread in this game. The Huskers all over Illinois in that one. Colorado at Arizona State. Arizona State, 8.5-point favorites at home. Really don't know why they're favored by so much. Other than the win at Michigan State, they have not really been impressive to me. Just kind of a lackluster effort and not even covering the spread at home against a Kent State team that lost to Auburn by almost 50 points. And then the next week, a 19-7 victory, I think it was, at home against Cal Poly Sacramento State. Excuse me, that's who it was. But they did go on the road, to their credit, hold Michigan State to 7 points and get a win there. Colorado, Mel Tucker, guys need to bounce back after a tough loss against Air Force last week. I think they do it here. Winning the game outright, not exactly sure about that, but I do think they'll cover the spread against Arizona on the road. UCLA at Washington State. Washington State, 18.5-point favorites at home. Easiest one for me to pick of the week. Give me the Cougars here to cover the spread in this one. UCLA is ranked near the bottom in every offensive and defensive category in the Power Five. They're just not a very good football team. And we had thought, well, year two, Chip Kelly, they had tremendous upside at the end of 2018. They really did. They really did. But, these guys have backpedaled. They have sat on that bicycle and pedaled it backwards this year. Have not looked good at all. The Cincinnati game was absolutely horrible. I lost to San Diego State, and then last week's just debacle against Oklahoma. It could have been way worse than what it was. Give me Washington State, the air raid here. Mike Leach and crew, there will not have any problems with the Bruins there. And I had to write this one down. I can't believe that this is one that I actually left out. I have it written down, but I typed up. Notre Dame on the road at Georgia. Probably biggest game of the, it is. It's the biggest game of the weekend. Going to be 94,000 people in the stadium. Probably another 100,000 outside the stadium. And this one, so it could be 200,000 people at this football game in Athens, Georgia. Notre Dame has given up. They've given up a lot of rushing yards. They're ranked really low as far as rushing yards go, rush defense. But let's not make too much of it. Right? Okay. Against New Mexico, they gave up a 67-yard run and a 44-yard run. Okay, that was bad. But that was chunk yardage. It was chunk yards. It's not like that they just ground the ball out against them the entire game. Okay. Against Louisville, wasn't impressed with the way their defense played. They let Louisville's running backs kind of get out there in space, get in that second level a little bit, and looked a little bit vulnerable. So, that's not a good cocktail, mixing all that together. When I look at that, and I know what Georgia's running backs are capable of doing, and they're not going to get out in space like Louisville's did. It's not the same style of back. It's going to bounce it to the outside. These guys are going to run straight between that tackle on the tight end or the guard and the tackle, and they are just going to run the ball down Notre Dame's throat. You have Jake Fromm there, who beat Notre Dame on the road 2 years ago. Obviously matured as a quarterback much more since then. I just like Georgia in this game. You're just talking strength on strength. And Notre Dame, not a bad football team, and I'm not besmirching them in any way. But let's just face facts. They have not played the toughest of schedules over the past couple of years, and yet they still may find their way in the college football playoffs. And some of these teams they should be blowing out there are barely eking by. Georgia's just been pretty much blowing out everyone they've played. Once again, that running attack is just going to be too much for Notre Dame. I don't see them being able to stop this Georgia attack. And like I said, while I don't want to make too much of it from the past couple of weeks, they haven't played. They have not faced anybody the style of Georgia. They're not going to face anyone that week. I think this is a team that's on a collision course with either Alabama or LSU, whoever ends up coming out of that side of the SEC West. I'm going to take Georgia in this game to cover that spread. I think that they win this game anywhere between 17 to 24 points. Give me the dogs in this one, and that's who we'll go with. All right, guys, those are my picks and predictions against the spread for week number 4. Tune in Sunday to Carolina Jackpot and see how I did against the spread. Obviously, there will be some reaction videos to the South Carolina-Missouri game, some hype videos for that one, maybe some, a hype video for the Clemson short. Never mind, excuse me. I don't do Clemson hype videos, but maybe we'll talk a little bit about the Notre Dame Georgia game if it's exciting or some things don't go the way we expected. But if you like this video, please hit it with the thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do. We're going to do picks and predictions against the spread every week this year and come up with a final total for Carolina Jackpot. Want to be handicapping close to 70% by the end of the year. Got a long way to go to get that 70%, but it is my goal, and that's what I'm working towards. So I will see y'all later. I do appreciate you tuning in to me, watching my videos, listening to me ramble on, and I'm out. Peace. Go Gamecocks. Beat Missouri.